Welcome to day 12 of our Lent Readings for 2026 as we continue to follow a series on verses that every Christian should know. Today is our second day in the book of Romans, where we'll look at a well-known verse from the start of chapter 12. As previously, we'll read it through twice. Romans 12 verse 1. Therefore, I urge you, brothers and sisters, in view of God's mercy, to offer your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and pleasing to God, which is your true and proper worship. Romans 12, verse 1. Therefore, I urge you, brothers and sisters, in view of God's mercy, to offer your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and pleasing to God. This is your true and proper worship. This verse marks a transition in the book of Romans, which is why it begins, therefore. Paul has spent the first 11 chapters showing that the gospel has the power to transform Christians from sin and death to righteousness and new life. Now comes what Paul sees as an appropriate response. Therefore, in view of God's mercy, offer your bodies as a living sacrifice. What does Paul mean by telling us to offer our bodies as a sacrifice, when he spent the first 11 chapters telling us how Jesus has offered his body as the perfect sacrifice, to the point that no further sacrifice is required? And further to that, what does he mean by a living sacrifice, as usually a sacrifice is made through death? The answer is that this is not about an atoning sacrifice. Jesus has done that. This is a sacrifice of worship. The end of the verse in the translation we read, which was the New International Version, says, "This is your true and proper worship." But that could easily be translated, "which is your reasonable service," as the King James Version translates. The Greek could be translated either worship or service. Our response to the great mercy of God is to offer ourselves in a sacrifice of worship. But worship is more than just singing. Everything we do to the honour and glory of God is an act of worship. Everything. What we do with our hands, where we go with our feet, what we look at with our eyes, what we listen to with our ears, what we say with our lips, what we think with our minds, what we do with our time, how we use our possessions, and how we conduct our relationships. Everything. Paul is saying that in response to Jesus laying down his life as an atoning sacrifice for us, we give our lives as a sacrifice of worship to him. And it's the only appropriate response. It's not about bringing a sacrifice. It's about being a sacrifice, holy and pleasing to God, which is our true and proper worship. Though we might call our Sunday services morning worship or evening worship, worship doesn't stop when we leave our buildings and go home. The quality of what we offer on a Sunday is very much dependent on what we've been offering throughout the rest of the week. Outwardly, we may look each Sunday that we are joining in the singing, raising our hands, offering our praise. But God sees our hearts. If we've been trying to live our lives as an act of worship throughout the week, we will find that it's not only our lips, but our hearts that will be singing praise to the Lord. However, if we've hardly thought about the Lord over the week, lived our lives without any consciousness of his presence with us, allowed our words and thoughts and deeds to be more influenced by the world than his word, then our lips may be moving, but our hearts will not be joining in. We are to make our whole life an act of worship in response to all that God has done for us. It's the only reasonable response. So let's read that verse once again. Romans 12, verse 1. Therefore I urge you, brothers and sisters, in view of God's mercy, to offer your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and pleasing to God. This is your true and proper worship. Amen. Till next time, have a blessed day.